Hey, good morning. It's Monday. I'm John F. Gately. You can call me Jack, broadcasting to you from beautiful Plymouth. Beautiful Plymouth. It is gorgeous out there. And it looks like we're going to have a couple of beautiful days ahead of us here Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. Look, possible rain on Thursday, but a nice stretch of spring weather. Happy Monday. Great to be with you. Kind of missed you over the weekend, having not done did the live stream on Friday morning, but I was like, I had enough material. I could almost have done another one over the weekend. Maybe that will happen in the future. But great to be back with you again this morning. Happy Monday. I want to start off with the story, which we'll just cover it for a very quick moment, but it seems like something positive. And Seth, the tech guy, and gosh, forgive me, I can't pronounce his last name, announced this on X yesterday. He'll be talking about a neat program that was recently announced by the city of Boston. Oh, so actually, by implication here, I'm going to say something nice about Mayor Wu, which is unusual, but nonetheless, credit where credit is due. The co-purchasing housing pilot program. It allows multiple households to pool their funds and collectively borrow money to buy multifamily homes in Boston. I said to myself, well, I don't know anything about it, and I'm always kind of leery of the government getting involved with it. But there are roles or times where the government can help. And maybe this is a good thing. Maybe this sounds. Let me just say, I'm intrigued. And I'd like to know more about it. I don't want it to be one of those things where it slows down the natural market cycle. That would be a concern of mine, as there are some proposals out there that will allow tenants to buy the property if the owner decides to sell it. If you own a 3-family, then the tenants will get the right of first refusal. But that massively slows down the market cycle and then devalues the property, which is the whole idea. And I have significant problems with that. But this seems different. I'm hoping it's different, and I am intrigued. As he scrolls down here a little second here. Boston is a pretty expensive place to buy a home. The average home here is $808,000 or $882 if you're looking only for a single family home. Some people can afford this, but this is basically an option to consolidate the money together, so people can go in together to buy a triple decker, which run about $1.5 million. You know what? Just while I'm sitting here, I'm going to put a repost on that. I'm intrigued. Not a full endorsement, but I am intrigued. And it's good to see that I had never heard of that idea before. So color me impressed. It's not a bad idea. Of course, as always, the devil is in the details. The devil's in the details. Owning multifamily property has always been kind of one of the pathways to, we'll just call it victory in the American way. You buy a multifamily property, you live on one of the floors, and then you rent out the other two. So in this case, though, if you're not renting out the other two, then where do you get the wealth factor? I'm a little fuzzy on that. I guess just by normal equity of owning a third of it, I guess that is not as compounding as it would be is if one family owned the whole 3-family. Instead, you're going to be basically dividing the 3-family by 3 families, which is not bad. Ownership is better than renting, but it's not that multiplier effect that sometimes you get with when one family lives on the first floor and they rent out the others. Let's talk about we've had a number of Worcester developments. If you haven't followed, the body cam footage was released on Friday afternoon, and it pretty much confirms most of the social media footage that we already seen, but obviously from a police officer angle. But what we know about the events really hasn't changed much. other than we now have like double confirmation that the people that caused the chaos, and the media was going, chaotic arrest. The people that caused the chaos weren't the cops. They were the people who went to Eureka Street, not the people who live on Eureka Street, but the loose ice hotline people who went to Eureka Street to observe and inform people about their rights. The people who went there and said the community had decided, right? The community decided that they didn't have a warrant. Remember, ICE doesn't have to show a warrant, right, to some knucklehead that shows up on the sidewalk. They might have to show it to somebody that they're arresting, maybe depending upon the requirements there, but they don't have to show it to some knucklehead that shows up on the sidewalk. Turning Point USA had, let's bring this video up here, had an example of how these people think. This is from over the weekend on Boston Common, right outside of Park Street Church.
ICE for immigrations, you call Luce. They'll send a response team to help the immigrants.
Wait, aren't these people illegals?
No.
They're not?
No.
No. So this is a perfect example. And way to go, Turning Point USA, front lines. This only got 57 retweets, and I thought it deserved much more. Actually, if we go to 89 retweets, I thought it deserved much more. Let's listen more.
You see ICE for immigrations, you call Luce. They'll send a response team to help the immigrants.
Wait, aren't these people illegals?
No.
They're not?
No. They're taking legals. They're taking people with visas. They're taking people with green cards. If they look Spanish, they're detaining them, and they're figuring it out afterwards.
What about the
That's pretty racist. Oh, if they look Spanish, they're just figure it out later.
Violent criminals?
There's no violent criminals that are getting deported.
Wait, what?
Why are you? Do you live here?
There are no violent criminals getting deported. Lady on Boston Common.
Where are you from?
I'm from Brookline, Massachusetts, ma'am.
Where's your family from? My family's from England. I came on the Mayflower, so I'm not supposed to be here.
I'm not supposed to be here. She's on stolen land. I'm not supposed to be here. And the guy's like, I'm from Brookline.
So where's your family from? Because you're not immigrant, right? You're not Native American. You're not indigenous, right?
Why does it matter where my family's from?
Because
Why?
you have an opinion that
I'm indigenous, by the way. I'm a native Bostonian. I was born in Boston. I'm pretty sure my parents were born in Boston. Yeah, like I'm a Boston guy. Yeah. Of course, now I live in the very leafy and exclusive suburbs. That's a topic for a different day. But I am a native Bostonian. I'm indigenous.
you're speaking against. These people don't belong here.
I was born in America, ma'am.
So was I.
Okay.
And so were some of these people, is what I'm trying to tell you.
Okay, but what about the ones who committed violent crimes, the rapes, the murders?
Due process, right? They need to go through the constitutional rights. We can't just deport them without due process.
But isn't this?
But actually, if you're here in the country illegally, there is some process, but and that's part of the process is getting arrested. If you're in the country legally, part of the process of getting deported, the first step is getting arrested so that we can send you back because you don't belong here.
Interfering with ICE agents, putting ICE agents in danger?
No, it's not. They're
Why?
putting us in danger. They're putting me in danger. Okay. They're putting you in danger. And you
She's
don't
pretty
know it.
angry now.
When first they came for the immigrants, then they're going to come for us. And what are you going to do then?
All right, good job, Turning Point USA. These are the knuckleheads that we're dealing with. Here's another post over the weekend from ICE hotline affiliates, I'll just say. They're out there taking pictures of all the ICE vehicles and then posting their registrations, which I blacked out in this. I took the little, thingy and blacked it out. But they're basically doxing the ICE vehicles. And then the caption of this post said, "Know thy enemy. Know thy enemy." That's who we're dealing with. Call the Luce ICE hotline if you pronounce it like they want you to pronounce it. By the way, the other day in Los Angeles, a couple of fellow, how do I want to say this, thinkers, people that would be sympathetic to the loose ice hotline, were arrested for using their vehicle to block ice from traveling down a street. Our special agents were trying to make a human trafficking arrest when Gustavo and Cara followed and blocked our special agents. Impending the official duties of a federal agent is a crime that can come with serious consequences. These two were arrested for it, according to U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement, ICE. So good for ICE for arresting them. And from what I understand, they're facing some serious charges out on the West Coast. That sounds very familiar. And it so happens that out on the West Coast, there is what we saw in Worcester and what we just saw from that woman at Park Street on Boston Common by the open air drug market. Thank you, Mayor Wu, is an effort nationwide, mostly on the coasts, to basically dox and harass, or community involvement, ICE while they do their jobs. Check a look at this report from KCAL just a couple of months ago. Here we go.
Los Angeles, local activists tracking what appeared to be ICE operations, reminding residents of their rights.
Well, as immigration enforcement...
Reminding residents of their rights. Did that look like... So they're tracking ICE operations so that they can remind residents of their rights. But that's what ICE... That's what the hotline said that they were doing in Worcester. Oh, we're just going to go over to Eureka Street and remind them of their rights. Did it look like that's what they were doing?
Sparks community action. KCAL's Jeff Nguyen reports federal agents are warning against interference.
Police.
Joaquin
Teran says he saw a handful of immigration and customs enforcement agents wearing their law enforcement jackets Sunday in San Fernando.
You can't see the warrant well, they can leave it at the door.
Similar to what the group Community Defense Coalition LA captured.
Community Defense Coalition LA is effectively the ICE hotline version in Los Angeles. And what they do is they track ICE activities. And I don't know if you caught the drift in that video. They're on the sidewalk with the bullhorn trying to reach basically into the house where ICE is at, trying to instruct these people not to come out of the house. To make it
video in the
ICE.
San Gabriel Valley, about 150 volunteers patrolling LA County following agents.
150 volunteers patrolling the county.
To a pair of operations in Alhambra and San Fernando.
In both of those places, we're happy to report that the agents decided to abort the mission for whatever reason.
I said,
for whatever reason, maybe because you made it difficult for them to do their job. Sound familiar? Worcester? Sound familiar? It sounds exactly familiar. Exactly familiar. By the way, most folks on Friday were very interested in the video, the body cam footage that was produced. Sometime Saturday, it dawned on me, let's listen to the 911 calls, which were also produced. And the 911 calls were very interesting. They released, I think it was 6 phone calls. 3 were from the ICE facility calling for help. The first one is like, hey, we have one officer surrounded by 25 people. Then they called back and asked for an ETA, which Worcester PD couldn't give. And then they called back a third time saying they had lost comms with their officers. Are you on the scene? And then they finally said, yes, we're on the scene. And ICE, the guy on the other end of the phone for ICE was like, okay, thank God you're there. They were really concerned for their safety, for ICE's safety, and for other people's safety because of the chaos caused by non-Eureka residents who went to Eureka Street basically to cause trouble, to cause the chaos. Remember, the chaos is what has put this on the national forefront. The chaos is what put this on the national forefront. And if you're one of these commies, this is what basically sets the stage. in the mainstream media bought the whole thing of the oppressor police versus the oppressor, right? It feeds into their whole communist dialectic worldview. So I thought it was very peculiar that 2 of the 911 calls that were made that day, 2 of them were specifically asking for the chief of police to come to Eureka Street. You know, if I saw some disturbance outside my house, I would just call up and say, can you send the cops, right? But 2 people, a man and a woman, called up, and both of them asked for the police chief, as if to kind of make it political, or like, who do I care? As long as someone comes in blue, like, you know, why do I need the police chief to come to the street? Maybe the police chief is being called by non-Eureka Street residents. That's my feeling. And this call, the woman claims to be calling on behalf of Worcester City Councilor Ethel Haxgia, or however you pronounce her name. Here, take a listen.
3 women.
Okay. And you said you were calling in regards to who?
On behalf of City Councilor Ethel Haxgia.
Ethel Haxgia. That's who she's calling for, allegedly. Now, listen, the next thing she says is actually completely ridiculous.
Okay. And is the city councilor there?
Yes. She's being held by ICE.
Councilor Haxgia is being held by ICE. That's what this woman says.
Now pushing her and a group of other women who are trying to protect the woman. Yep, here we go.
All right.
We need Chief Sauce here. Get Chief Sauce here, please.
We have officers on the way. I need to confirm you're saying, I understand, ma'am, but I need to confirm you're saying it's the city councilor being held currently?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
And you want Chief Sauce here?
Yes. The chief of police. I need him here right now.
Officers will be over there as soon as we have someone available, ma'am, okay?
Oh, the baby.
She mentions the chief's name 3 times. And then she says the city councilor is being held by the ICE, which clearly, when you watch the video, that is not true. That is clearly not true. And like these 911 calls, especially this one in particular, are incredibly peculiar. Let's just put it this way. That, like, why would you call up and ask for the chief 3 times and also lie to the 911 operator that the city councilor is being held by the ICE agent, which is clear. That is never demonstrated in any of the footage that at least I have seen. Maybe you have seen something different, but I have never seen footage where the city councilor is being held by ICE. No, and I didn't see any. I'm pretty sure I watched it all. I didn't see any of that. There is an opportunity here, and a couple of politicians that are police-friendly politicians, maybe even former police officers, have taken this opportunity of what happened in Worcester to push for a new law, which I've been critical in the past. A couple of weeks ago when they pushed this new law, they were pushing it based upon having a buffer zone if you had a cell phone in your hand, that you couldn't use your cell phone to record the police if you were within a certain distance. And now they're saying that the new spin, they dropped the cell phone spin, even though it still might be in the bill. But now they're saying that Worcester ICE Showdown underscores need for Massachusetts first responder buffer zone, say lawmakers. And I actually totally disagree with this. The chaos that was caused on Eureka Street is not because we lack the laws to maintain order. It's that we lack the will to maintain order. the police do not need another law. And they certainly don't need another law, which potentially would impinge upon people's First Amendment rights to record police officers in the conduct of their public duty. And if somebody wants to stand on the sidewalk or in their own front lawn and yell disgusting things to first responders, that's their First Amendment right to do it. I don't like it. I wouldn't do it myself. It's repugnant, but that's their right to do it. The problem with what happened on Eureka Street is the will to enforce the existing law has now evaporated. If out of the George Floyd in 2020 incident, if your department has not yet been defunded or reimagined, if it hasn't been reimagined, it has certainly been defanged. It has certainly been defanged. What do I mean by that is that in most of these big Democrat cities, Worcester, the cops on the beat know that the elected officials do not have their back. And in Worcester on Eureka Street that day, they knew that exquisitely because one of the elected officials was one of the people who were physically in their way from performing their duty. You know that Councilor Haji isn't going to back you up tomorrow because today she's physically giving you a hard time. If you wanted to send a message to Councilor Haji, you should have arrested her and probably a couple of other people for laws that exist already in Massachusetts. Disturbing the peace would be other. I'm sure there's a whole long list of obstructing law enforcement type of charges that could have occurred. But they don't have the will because they know they're not going to get backed up by their elected officials, especially when one of their elected officials is actually committing the offenses that should be arrested for right in front of them. Right? And that Worcester City Council has, I don't want to say a majority, but quite a few very far leftists on it. Councilor King would be another one. Very far leftists on it that are not going to back up their own cops in enforcing the law. Because it all feeds into, as we just mentioned a moment ago, their far left view of oppressor versus oppressed dialectic worldview. And that's what happened out of George Floyd. If you didn't get defunded, you definitely got defanged. Because these cops in the street, they don't have the backup. We don't need any more laws. We need the will to enforce the laws we already have. We didn't need an amnesty bill like Maura Healey was always saying. If I just had an amnesty bill, we wouldn't have this Healey hotel problem. No, we needed a new president with the will to close the border. And thank God we got one. So, yeah, no, we don't need that bill. No, thank you. Our top story over at massiveuturn.com this morning is about a Worcester school committee candidate who got arrested that day on Eureka Street. The next day, she launched a fundraiser on GoFundMe. Not for the family that was involved in the migrant crisis, not for them, who she ostensibly was on Eureka Street to support. She didn't start a GoFundMe for the migrant family that was in crisis. No, she started a GoFundMe for herself. She started a GoFundMe for herself the next day. Remember, she's now facing multiple charges for assaulting the police. And she raised within 72 hours $9,200, launched the fundraiser the day after arrest, facing multiple charges. This is Ashley Spring with their finger right in the face of the police officer. At some point, Ashley Spring did get arrested, and there were other people who how shall I say this, conducted themselves in a similarly disorderly manner. They all should have been arrested, including the city councilor that we just talked about. So Ashley Spring, running for school committee, and she spoke at the Worcester rally at Worcester City Hall last week. She started her own fundraiser to fight the unjust charges because she put herself between ICE agents who were capturing women unlawfully. And by that Sunday, she had raised $9,200. And she also said in her Instagram video announcing the fundraiser that she had been placed on unpaid leave from the Worcester Public Schools. Spring is, according to Fox 25, facing assault and battery on a police officer, assault and battery with a dangerous weapon, disorderly conduct, and interfering with the police officer charges. She goes to court back again, I think, sometime in June. The campaign has now been deleted from GoFundMe, but it's unclear if Spring cashed out the funds, refunded the donors, or simply unpublished the seemingly successful fundraiser. You raised $9,200. Spring has not issued an update on Instagram since the announcement. So there was this fundraiser, which she launched the day after the incident, and it was still on Instagram, still on GoFundMe as of that Sunday. It was still on, and then it's gone. It's not on GoFundMe anymore, and she has not mentioned it again. So where'd the money go? Did she cash out the? Did she? Who knows? She hasn't mentioned it at all. But it seems like, how do I want to say this? An insight to her motives. Get in trouble with the cops, raise money, right? Her first reaction is, how do I raise money? First reaction is, how do I raise money? The last known, how do I say this, public media post about this was from Bill Shaner, who posted it on May 11th. That would have been that Sunday at Mother's Day at 8:38 a.m. Donate to the school board candidate arrested in Worcester in the ICE raid fund. And now it's not found. But you can find the search for it. Help Ashley Spring fight the unjust charges. Where'd the money go? And even if you refunded it all, what does that say about you, that when you get arrested the next day, rather than raise money for the family that you went there to support, you went and started to raise money for you? Right? It's one thing if you went to go raise money for the family that you were there to support, then that would have been like, okay, I would have understood that. But you went to go raise money for you. By the way, the fundraiser on GoFundMe for the family, the actual family at the center of this whole thing, is still active. That's still active. And the woman that got arrested that day is still in custody, from what I understand, to the best of my knowledge, in Rhode Island. There's a nice facility in Rhode Island, from what I remember. By the way, you can get over to massiveuturn.com, and get your daily newsletter telling the truth the mainstream media won't tell you. By the way, we were the first people to report the unemployment rate that came out on Friday at 4.6%. 4.6% in Massachusetts. That's higher, 0.4 higher than the national average. MassiveUturn.com. MassiveUturn.com. You want to get over there and sign up for our daily newsletter. By the way, I was doing some further research about the unemployment numbers, and I dove into the equity dashboard. And it ends up that Black unemployment is more than double since Healy took office. I was like, wait a second here. How can that be? How can that be? But when you go over to the chart, it's quite clear. Healy took office in January of 2023, and black unemployment in Massachusetts was 3.4%. And now it's 7.5%. Wow. Hispanic or Latino unemployment is now 5.9% in Massachusetts, having been as low as 4.3. That's been fairly elevated Hispanic employment. But some point in the beginning of Healy's term, in July of 2023, black unemployment exceeded Hispanic unemployment, and has been on a tear ever since. So black unemployment, if you're black in Massachusetts, you're trying to find a job, it's much harder. Whatever the unemployment rate is higher, 7.5%. For black workers here in Massachusetts, 5.9% for Hispanic Latino, and the statewide average, by the way, these are March numbers. They haven't updated the chart with April's number. Imagine these numbers will probably all go up. Every one of these lines will probably all go up because the Massachusetts unemployment rate is now 4.6%, where in March it was 4.2%. So when they do update this chart, probably all of these numbers will go up, you would imagine. But black unemployment in Massachusetts is now 7.5%. That's more than double what it was when Healy took office. More than double, and it's the highest it's been, not including the pandemic. It's the highest it's been since sometime in 2017. Highest it's been since November of 2017. Minus the pandemic. Obviously, everyone's unemployment went up during the pandemic. But other than that, other than the pandemic, it's the highest since November of 2017. Not a good look for Maura Healey. Not a good look for Maura Healey. Let's take a look here while we're at it to see if we have any comments. We have a lot of comments this morning. Let's take a look. Duncan or D. Burns, all the left has is chaos. And that's all they've had. Like that's their playbook. If anything, 2020 taught them with the George Floyd protest is that chaos works. Why wouldn't they go back to it time and time again? The city council was frozen by ice. Buck says, thank you, D. D. Burns says the state needs 100. John Gately. That's nice of you. Buck says the only truthful thing in Massachusetts is that it's a communist state. Buck also adds, ICE is one of the few functional entities in Massachusetts. You know who else is a functional entity in Massachusetts, Buck? And that is the U.S. Attorney Leah Foley, right? And so we have this situation out in Los Angeles with those two knuckleheads got arrested in the last couple of days for using their vehicles to block ICE. We had some other type of different set of facts, but similar flavor type of case up in Maine and obviously in New Jersey. And I think now with the release of the body cam footage, which I'm sure U.S. Attorney Leah Foley could have gotten without it being put on YouTube, she could have gotten a, but if I know anything about the feds and how they prosecute these things, they're incredibly deliberate. I think that would be the phrase to use. That's one of the reasons why they hardly ever lose is that, if you've done something wrong, you know they're coming for you. It's like that movie, Butch Cassidy and Sundance Kid with Paul Newman and Robert Redford, and they're always looking behind them. Who are those guys? Right? Who are those guys? You know the movie? You know the thing. But eventually they catch up, right? Eventually catch up. And what do the leftists say? The arc of justice bends towards the arc of history bends towards justice, whatever that stupid phrase is. They're coming. They're coming for them for sure. Thank you for all those nice comments. Let's go to the next one. Ed Sullivan, John, keep up the fight. You're doing great. Once we replace the judges win the midterms, then we can. Yeah. The midterms are going to be tough. The midterms are going to be tough. There's no doubt about it. Such a good site. Massive U-turn is great. Thank you. Thanks for the good comments there. Appreciate all those. Shifting gears to Boston City Hall. So over the weekend, yesterday, Councilor Flynn calls for the Economic Opportunity and Inclusion Chief's resignation or termination. And I was like, where did that come from? He doesn't actually say specifically why. If you read the Herald article or if you read Mr. Flynn's post on X, he basically says ethical leadership can't be an afterthought in the city government. I'm calling for his immediate resignation. His name, by the way, is I can't pronounce the name. But an outside investigation he's calling for into the hiring practices, workplace culture, and environment is warranted at several city departments, including the Office of Police Accountability, the Office of Economic Opportunity, and the Mayor's Office of Neighborhood Services. This is what Councilor Flynn is saying. And it so happens that the two people that were involved in the love triangle were employees from two of those divisions that we just mentioned. Plus, I would also add that one of the participants in the alleged love triangle, apparently, according to Universal Hub, had an outstanding warrant. He was working at Mayor Wu's City Hall, and he had an outstanding warrant from a traffic problem in 2019. He had an outstanding warrant since 2022 after he failed to show for a trial on 2019 charges of reckless operation, speeding, and failure to yield, according to Universal Hub. So, yeah, this guy is working at City Hall, even though he's wanted by Chelsea District Court, which is, you could almost see Chelsea from Boston City Hall, yet he's working there. And so Flynn's putting two to two together. This is not hard to figure out. He doesn't come out and say it, but he's basically putting two and two together. And by the way, the name of the gentleman is Sugun Idoa. Guy, I'm sure I'm no disrespect. I'm sure I'm mispronouncing it. And the Herald puts two and two together. Idoa was not named in the police report. We should probably note that. That's important to note. The Herald reached out. He did not comment. But clearly, Flynn is calling for him to be fired and or terminated. And two and two together is the fact that this guy, Singo Andoa, however you pronounce his name, forgive me, either fostered an environment for which this occurred or knew about it or should have known about it. And then there's the third aspect of that is that we still don't know. Nobody's known, but we know that there are two participants in the love triangle. We know who they are, allegedly, but we don't know who the third participant in the love triangle. You need three people to be in the triangle. We don't know who the name of that other person is. I wonder who that could be. Right? I wonder who that could be. But in the meantime, the guy who runs that whole department, he should have known about the traffic violation trial that one of his employees skipped out on, and he should have not fostered this type of environment that existed within his own city hall that, reports directly to the mayor, from what I understand. So good for Ed Flynn for calling it as it is, which is typically how Ed Flynn rolls, right? Still a Democrat, but that's okay. Like, I used to be a Democrat. Not all Democrats are nuts. there are still some reasonable Democrats, like regular old Democrats. There's not many, but Ed Flynn's one of them. So good for him for calling for the resignation, and good for the Herald for putting 2 to 2 together. We don't know who the third person in the love triangle is. I'm sure there are a lot of people trying to figure that out. Who the third person, who could that be? In the meantime, I saw this post on X. This is the type of passion, this guy with the orange shirt, if he was running for governor, this is who I'd vote for. I'd vote for somebody like this.
$2 billion of our tax dollars gone. Our veterans are sleeping on the streets, and illegal immigrants are getting free housing, free meals, free health care, free everything, and we're footing the bill. And guess what? We're not even cooperating with ICE. Our government won't even hand these people over to the federal government to get rid of them. What's really going on here?
This is the type of passion that I want for my governor candidate. That's the type of passion that I have no idea who this guy is. He could be I don't know who he is. No idea who this guy is. And this guy in the red shirt. What's his handle on TikTok? Spaz Now. He might not be the best guy, but I like his passion. I don't know who he is, no idea. But who posted this on X? Somebody downloaded and posted on X. Kathleen Winchell, who I'm not really familiar with on X, but somehow it crossed my desk. This is Massachusetts. It's horrible what they're doing to their citizens. Shame on their corrupt politicians. Like, everybody else in the country thinks Massachusetts is nuts, which is not a bad, which is a fair conclusion. And fortunately, I've been blessed many times over the last several years to be able to travel outside of Massachusetts. And boy, it's a refreshing spring breeze when you get out of the allegory of the cave that we live here. So instead of having a nominee for governor who's like this guy,
$1 billion of our tax dollars gone. Our veterans are sleeping on the streets, and illegal immigrants are getting free housing, free meals, free health care, free everything, and we're footing the bill.
Instead of having some guy like that running for governor, we have some guy like this running for governor.
Got the skills and the background and the relationships to make a difference for Massachusetts.
Well, and as we introduce you, you're Republican running for governor,
Yes.
and you say you didn't vote for President Trump, right?
No.
And so I want to make that clear. Last fall being the latest reason why. Why?
Look, that was the right decision at the time, I thought. But look, the only election I'm focused on right now is 2026.
Got it.
And the only politician I want to compare myself to is Maura Healey.
Got
So
it.
we are on to 2026. That's where our focus has to be right now.
Democrats are focused on comparing you, however.
Okay, hold on. I almost fell asleep there for a second. We're not going to go down the Trump road. You know how I feel about that. But I'm just talking about the presentation. And one of the most damning quotes that came out of this on the record interview was at the 4-minute mark. Let's cut to that, where Michael Keneally, this is Michael Keneally, by the way, candidate for governor, says that, and let me just get my notes so I can get this correct, that the problem is tone and leadership style for Maura Healey. This is not a tone and leadership style problem. This is a strategic policy direction problem. That's why we named the website Massive U-Turn. Get it? This is not a technocrat problem. This is not a tone and leadership style problem. This is, we're going in the wrong direction problem. Like that guy in the orange shirt and that TikTok just said. This is how Michael Keneally said it.
A multi-year solution to a multi-year problem. But you have to have this attitude of partnership. I love my job as secretary. Okay. I traveled the state for 4 years. We got things done. It was a roll up your sleeves, work with business, government, community leaders to get things done in their communities. And so part of it is the tone and the leadership style. We're a long way from that. That's what I want to get back to.
Part of it is the tone and the leadership. We're a long way from that. That's what we have to get back to. Listen, what I said last week, this campaign, and there's nothing wrong with Mr. Keneally. He's a really nice guy. If he was your next door neighbor, you'd be very, very fortunate. He's a really nice guy. But the packaging on that campaign is packaged towards soccer moms, which is a 30-year-old strategy. There are not enough soccer moms. They're declining in number relative to urban populations, which are much more voter rich, but they're reluctant voters. They are people like Reagan Democrats or Lawrence Democrats or Fall River. They are people who are not going to come out for somebody who sounds like Mr. Keneally. They are going to come out for somebody who speaks the truth like this knucklehead in the orange shirt. That's who they're going to come out for. This guy has a better chance of getting elected than this guy. Yeah, it's true. It's true. This guy, the orange shirt guy, he has a better chance of getting elected. There was one other thing that Mr. Keneally said the other day, and let's go to the cut 3 at the 7-minute mark, where he had the opportunity to blast, which he should have, the city councilor in Worcester. Now, to be fair, this is where the legacy media fails, because this program is recorded like Wednesday or Thursday, and they don't post it till Sunday. So they're still recording on the record in the same way they recorded 5 on 5 back in 1992 with Avi Nelson and Hubie from BU, right? Doris Kearns. It's the same program, right? Hubie Jones, right? Remember that? Yeah, 5 on 5. It's this. They didn't record it Sunday morning. They recorded like Friday. So they record this Thursday or something like that, and then they post it on Sunday. And I don't know if you've noticed, but things move a lot faster than they did in 1992. So Mr. Keneally is a little bit deserved by the legacy media model of this program, because the video of what happened on Eureka Street came out on Friday afternoon, and this didn't get posted till Sunday. So that's a negative of WCVB and legacy media thinking that they can just record an interview and then post it 3 or 4 days later. But having said that, Mr. Keneally also had the benefit of watching what all of us watched on all the socials. And what was on the socials is effectively the same thing that's on the body cam. We already knew that the people that, including the city councilor, that were causing the chaos weren't the cops. It was the people that went there, like the city councilor. But this is what he had to say about what happened in Worcester.
Devolved in a complete chaos. When people started to push back, you are you, let me just flat out ask you, those agents and the U.S. attorney are defending federal action. What is your opinion on that?
My opinion, Ed, is that we have to have local, county, and state law enforcement working with the feds to get the worst criminals out of our shelters, off our streets, and out of our state, period.
That's a different topic altogether. What you really should have said is that the people who went to Worcester to cause trouble for the cops, more of them should have got arrested. You should have been like, how can we even tolerate that? Instead, he's talking about what happened in the shelters, which is fine, but it's not responsive to the question.
And that isn't happening. That has to happen.
I don't think anyone objects to criminals, but
there's, if you talk to the sheriffs, for example, I toured Plymouth County Jail recently and talked to Sheriff McDonald down there. The sheriffs don't feel like they're being supported in that regard. They don't feel like there's enough of a coordination between local, state, and county with the feds. And you talk about bad incidents. I mean, there have been thousands of incidents in these shelters. Horrible incidents. So we got to really focus.
Right, but that doesn't make the incident in Worcester, which is what they're asking him about, any better. And again, the shelter law, Mr. Keneally's position on the shelter law is that he can reform the shelter law. That can't be reformed. The shelter law is not a situation where if only he was the governor, it would be better. No. The shelter law, we're the only people in the country that have the shelter law. No other state has it. No other state wants it. The rational decision is to be against the shelter law. I want to repeal it. But here's the problem, and this is why he mirrors Governor Baker's tragic flaw. And a lot of these soccer mom candidates fall into this category. And a lot of big government Republicans fall into this category. See Washington, D.C., for example. A lot of these big government Republicans feel that if only they were in charge, they could run it better. And when you say something like, no, we should reform the law, no, we should get rid of it. We're the only people with the law. We should get rid of it. When you say something like, as Mr. Keneally's position is, no new taxes, the implication of that is that you're okay with the current level of taxation. Who can be okay? If you're a Republican, how do you come out and say that you're okay with the current level of taxation? Shouldn't your position be taxes are too high? This guy is already admitting that he's okay with the current levels of taxes. No new taxes is completely the opposite of I'm going to cut taxes massively. I'm going to cut spending massively. He's not there. He's just basically saying if we had better tone and we had better leadership style, things would be better. We saw that with Governor Baker. Governor Baker, who I was a big fan of early on, even the first campaign, which he lost, big fan here on X of Governor Baker, Facebook Governor, big fan. But as Governor Baker's term in office continued, I was like, oh, he's lost his way. He's no longer doing the reinventing government thing. He's just become uniparty. And then that tragic flaw was completely exposed during the pandemic, where I don't know if you've ever read the book, The Best and Brightest by David Halberstam, that describes how a lot of Harvard people, Kennedy people got us into Vietnam. But it was basically that they were thoroughly and absolutely convinced by their own hubris that if only they ran it, it'd be okay with the COVID, right? Baker was completely convinced. He ate his own dog food. He was completely convinced that he could manage COVID, that he had the government control to manage it. He had the skill. It was his ability. When you have that type of confidence, pride in your ability to manage the government, you don't understand the constructive damage that the government can do. And that really, getting back to kind of a Reaganism here, and forgive me on whose quote this is, but the government that governs least governs best, right? Whose famous quote? That's a famous quote. The name escapes me at the moment. By the way, hundreds of you are joining today. That is great. Great to have you on the show. Judy says it's suicidal empathy. Yeah. Yep, it is. Especially, Judy, by the way, the homeless industrial complex, suicidal empathy. Pasha says it's getting worse and worse every day here on the Cape too. Yeah, I might go to the Cape today. We'll see. Nick says it's getting worse. Oh, Nick, you just said that. Okay. All right. I think we're caught up on the comments. Let's move to the next topic. Chester Tam. Chester Tam, once again, nailing it here. Governor Healey's energy policy caused utility prices to spike, but she blames the energy companies. Now she's claiming to lower costs when she's the reason they went up in the first place. Massachusetts deserves better. Excellent observation, Chester Tam. And if you haven't seen this video from Governor Healey, we will not play the whole thing, but I'm just going to play maybe the first 10 seconds or so. Listen.
Energy costs are too high. Too many people can't afford the energy bills that we're seeing right now. So I've done something about it. I asked my team to put together legislation to change that, to lower your bills. Here's what we're doing. Here's what I filed this week.
So she created the problem, and now she's going to file another piece of legislation to fix the problem that she created so that she can be viewed as the hero of solving the problem that she created. Pretty sure that when you look in the dictionary under gaslighting, that is like, I don't use that phrase very often because it's just way overused. But I'm pretty sure that's the definition of gaslighting, right? Pretty sure that's the definition of gaslighting right there. And Chester Tam calls her out for it. Or you could also, if you want just some truth, like the old John Lennon song, you could just watch this incredibly short 9-second video from Mass Fiscal.
My goal has been to do everything that we can to drive down energy costs.
That's her goal. That's what she's telling you.
Remember, I stopped 2 gas pipelines from coming into this state.
April of 2022, which really was only 3 years ago. Remember, I stopped 2 gas lines from coming into the state. Now she wants to tell us that energy costs are too high, and she's here to help us. She's going to solve the problem by filing a piece of legislation. In that big announcement that she did up in the Merrimack Valley last week sometime, anywhere in that package where she was going to save us $10 billion, anywhere in that package, was there an announcement of additional natural gas supply for New England or Massachusetts? No, because that is a sin in the climate religion. That is a sin in the climate religion. But ever since President Trump, who I voted for, Mr. Keneally didn't vote for, Mr. Shortsleeve voted for the ticket, but Trump, who probably a lot of you voted for, and the majority of the country, because not only did he win the Electoral College, he won the popular vote as well. Trump has been pushing for a gas pipeline to Massachusetts and New England. And it's called the Constitution Natural Gas Pipeline. Is it possible? Yes, says Trump, in quest for energy dominance. Don't we want energy dominance? I think we want energy dominance. That's what I want. I liked it during the first Trump term where we were, how do I want to say this, net exporters of energy. And as soon as Biden came in, that went away. So that's why the Globe had a freak out today, because Trump is pushing this gas pipeline, the evil fossil fuel gas pipeline. The Globe had a flip out, so they ran a piece by Jim Pagazaria. Oh, look at that. He's from the D.C. Bureau. Formerly of the L.A. Times and the Daily NU, whatever that is. He ran a piece today saying Trump says the solution to high New England energy costs is a natural gas pipeline, but it isn't that simple. You know what? It might not be that simple, but more gas supply is definitely part and a big part of the solution. If you want some other suggestions while we're at it, how about we get rid of our incredibly nutty net zero climate policy by 2050, no gas vehicles by 2035. How about we get rid of those policies right away? If you want to if the gas pipeline isn't enough for you, how about we also get rid of those pipelines? So the Globe had a flip out and ran this story because they understand that the gas pipeline is becoming possible again. The governors of New York and Connecticut have signaled openness to discussing new natural gas pipelines. In fact, Kathy Hochul just approved not a pipeline project, but let's just say gas infrastructure enhancement project in New York State, which was horrifying to the climate religionists. But she approved it because every once in a while, these Democrat governors start to realize that we're not at the point yet where we can have a transition to renewable energy. We're not at that point. And may I also just add, these folks, these climate nuts like Maura Healey, they're not interested in creating a better mousetrap. They're interested in creating a monopoly for their mousetrap. Understand, completely different. If they came up with all of these renewable energy, green energy, electric cars, all that, and they were all better on every front so that the market flocked to them without subsidy, or if you want to argue with equal subsidy, then fine. But that's not what they're trying to do. They're not trying to compete on a level playing field. They're instead going to the government and saying, in order for us to make the transition, we have to outlaw the competition. That's like wrong in so many ways. Like, I don't even think, I think that kind of that says it all right there, right then and there. Let's see, take a look at our time frame here. Okay, we're doing good. Hold on. Buck has one more comment. I remember the phrase, last one to leave Massachusetts and turn the lights off. The problem with that, Buck, is the lights actually might go out on their own. Yeah, with the rolling blackouts that are soon going to come, and they'll be implemented by your smart meter. By the way, that was a story that we also broke last week. That if you choose to, how do I want to say this, not convert to the smart meter, then you're going to be charged $408 a year. $408. So that video that Maura puts out where she's like, we're going to get rid of the fees. Let's listen to this again.
We're going to get rid of all those charges on your bills that aren't working out for programs or things that just don't pay out.
But they're actually going to go forward with a new fee, and that is the smart meter fee. And if you don't convert to the smart meter, you're going to be paid or charged, I should say, $408 a year for keeping your old-fashioned meter, which works just fine. And the reason why that is because they want to go to these wireless meters, because the wireless meters will allow them to regulate the electric rate on an hour-by-hour basis, which will allow the utility companies to push their inefficiency immediately onto the ratepayer, and the ratepayer won't have time to react. Yeah, so they're getting rid of the fees. The same day they announced that we're getting rid of the fees, they announce a new fee. All right, great to be with you today. Happy Monday. Enjoy your beautiful spring day.